To this day, the Metro series has been one of the only franchises that's been able to put a gun in my hands and still freak the hell out of me. And with the release of the new Metro Exodus, coming sometime in 2018, I thought it might be cool to highlight some of the things that made the series so enjoyable. And first up on that list are the monsters. While I always loved fighting the Reds and Nazis, there's no doubt that the number one thing that always made the Metro games stand out to me were all the different creatures. No matter what kind of harmless mammals these guys started out as, most of them were now giant mutant killing machines with a taste for one thing and one thing only: humans. And the fact that not a single one of these guys needed a gun to kill you was always something that stood out to me. And on top of that, each monster was sort of their own unique obstacle that the player would have to overcome, since no two species were ever alike. You had the Watchers, who hunted in packs, demons, who ruled the skies, and then there were the ones that always gave me the shivers, the spider bugs, who, as small as they were compared to the others, provided this really awesome dynamic, where you would first have to fry them with your flashlight in order to then flip them on their back and start doing some real damage. Oh, and don't even think about taking a boat out of Russia. That is, unless you want to be killed by giant mutant shrimp. Essentially, in the Metro series, the humans are now at the bottom of the food chain, and truth be told, I think that's what made this fight for survival such a gripping experience. Now, where there's enormous monsters that want nothing more than to eat you for breakfast, there's usually a gun or two lying around. And for me, the very stylized weapons, and the ways in which you could customize them, played a huge role in how much I ended up enjoying the action-packed gameplay. Not to mention, this sort of weapon upgrade system was in long before we ever saw anything similar in games like The Last of Us or the eventual Fallout 4. And it played a huge role in how you would approach every situation. For instance, you may have had a really nice gun that you'd been working on upgrading for a while, but if the time ever came where you ran out of ammo or simply needed something more appropriate for the situation, dropping that special gun for something new could have been the difference between life and death. And better yet, there was no silly inventory system that allowed you to carry hundreds of guns. If you dropped one and decided to move on, that was it. The gun was gone for good. Now, another big part of the Metro games has always been, well, the Metro tunnels. After all, it is one of the only places that the humans can still survive. However, should you find yourself up on the surface, that's not to say all hope is lost. Thanks to the game's innovative gas mask system, you can actually survive as long as you want on the ominous yet gorgeous surface. Granted, you continue to replenish the filter, and of course, don't get eaten while doing so. And just like the weapons and creatures, the gas masks also added a really interesting dynamic to Metro's gameplay. The game may have felt quite linear at times, but chances were there would be a few branching paths that you had the option to explore. And these extra areas mixed with the gas masks offered that classic dilemma of risk versus reward in its purest form. Sure, that dark, cobweb-covered room might have had some extra ammo or another filter, but you know what? You might end up wasting more ammo and more air just to get there. And speaking of the gas masks and different locations, let's talk about the setting. Because at the end of the day, this is what makes everything else possible. It's why we can have gameplay elements like the filter system, and yet it never feels too bothersome. Because although it may play a huge role on the surface, once you're back down in the Metro tunnels, that's at least one thing that you don't always have to worry about. And this setting has provided so many unique and memorable locations throughout both of the previous games. On the surface, you would often run into cold, dark, and dismal places, such as the library, and then down below you had more lively areas and towns, such as Venice, even if the journey to them was just as dangerous as the world above ground. And to me, that's what makes the setting so special, because sure, in most places, just about everything that moves wants to kill you, but the series has also done a great job at providing some nice pockets of downtime that allow for the player to simply take a break from all the madness. And with that said, that just about wraps things up for this list. Of course, there are so many other things that contribute to why I love this series so much, such as the characters and the awesome atmosphere. But at the end of the day, these are always the 4 main things that come to mind when I think of why I enjoy the Metro games. So hopefully the new Metro Exodus turns out to be just as good, if not better, than the first 2. And speaking of that, feel free to let me know your thoughts on the new Metro, or how the series has done so far, since just recently we got yet another big gameplay trailer. But yeah guys, thanks for watching, and as always, I will see you in the next one.